Have you ever been judged just by the clothes you wore before anyone even asked your name? On a crisp Friday morning in downtown Chicago, a tall black man stepped into one of the most exclusive jewelry stores on Michigan Avenue. No bodyguards, no designer labels, just a navy sweater, clean dark jeans, and a quiet presence. His name was Julian Carter, and what happened next would expose something ugly beneath all the marble floors and glittering diamond sand, change an entire industry. Julian wasn't the kind of man who needed to prove anything to anyone. At 42, he'd built one of the most successful investment firms in the country from scratch. The son of Haitian immigrants, he grew up cleaning offices with his parents at night so they could afford his school books during the day. That kind of upbringing leaves a mark, not bitterness, but clarity. And it taught him this: real power doesn't shout, it watches. It was his 15th wedding anniversary. His wife, Danielle, had always admired pink diamonds specifically, a one-of-a-kind pendant she'd once pointed out in a magazine ad for Lysandra and Company, the city's most elite jeweler. Julian didn't usually care for flashy purchases, but this wasn't about the pendant. It was about showing her he remembered, that he was paying attention. He could have sent an assistant, but Julian believed some things deserved your presence. So that morning, before his board meeting, he asked his driver to stop by the flagship store. The inside of Lysandra and Company looked like a cathedral for the ultra-wealthy: gleaming glass, security in designer suits, associates in high heels and sharp blazers floating between customers offering flutes of champagne. As Julian stepped in, no one offered him a drink, no one even said hello. He watched as a young white couple behind him were immediately greeted. "Welcome to Lysandra. Can I help you find anything special today?" With warm smiles and eager attention. Julian said nothing. He didn't need a welcome party. He moved deeper into the store, toward a velvet-draped display case marked Anniversary Collection. There it was, the pendant. A rare blush pink diamond set in platinum, understated but unforgettable, $75,000. He studied it for a few moments, waiting to be acknowledged. A saleswoman passed by, then another. No one made eye contact. No one asked if he needed help. And yet, Julian stood still, patient, observing. That's when he appeared. The manager, Richard Halston, a tall man with sleek silver hair, crisp cuffs, and a jaw that looked like it had never unclenched. He walked like someone who believed the room belonged to him, and from the way he scanned Julian's outfit, he made a decision without saying a word. "Can I help you find something more appropriate for your price range?" Richard asked, with a voice that sounded like a velvet knife. Julian looked up, meeting his gaze evenly. "Actually, I'm interested in the pendant from the Anniversary Collection." A flicker of something passed through Richard's expression: surprise, annoyance. "That piece is $75,000, he said, more loudly this time. "Perhaps something from our sterling collection would be a better fit." Julian didn't blink. "I'd still like to see it." Richard smiled, not kindly. "Our policy requires income verification for high-value items." He paused. "Unless you have a relationship with the store." Julian let the silence hang between them. Other customers had started watching. One woman clutched her designer bag a little closer. Another gave a tight-lipped smirk, as if she were enjoying the show. Richard leaned in slightly. "These items cost more than most people make in a year," he said. "We're not a museum." He pointed subtly toward the door. "Jason," he said to security, "please escort this gentleman out." Julian stood still. The light glinted off the silver ring on his left hand. At that moment, there was no outburst, no raised voice, just something colder, a stillness that felt like the eye of a storm about to break. Julian Carter didn't move. He let Richard's words linger in the room like smoke, bitter, choking, and deeply revealing. The security guard, a stocky man in his 30s, hesitated. His name tag read, Jason. He looked uncertain, glancing at Julian, then at Richard, as if waiting for confirmation that what was happening was even real. "I'll leave on my own," Julian said quietly, voice calm but unmistakably firm. "You don't need to put your hands on me." Richard ignored the statement. "Jason, remove him, now." Jason stepped forward. Julian's jaw tightened. Not in anger, at least, not the kind that exploded. It was the kind that had learned to hold, to wait, to document. He had sat through boardrooms where people talked over him. He had watched investors underestimate him because of his skin, his name, his calm tone. He had won anyway. But this moment was different. He reached slowly into his back pocket, careful not to make any sudden movements. In places like this, even reaching for your wallet could be misread. He pulled out a leather billfold and calmly flipped it open, not to show a credit card, but a CEO identification badge, embedded with a gold foil Lysandra and Company logo and the words, "Julian Carter, Chief Executive Officer." Jason froze. Richard squinted at the badge, then laughed. A single, dismissive laugh. "Right," he sneered. "And I'm Elon Musk. Let's go, sir." Julian held the badge steady. "Every employee at Lysandra received this image," he said, motioning toward the photo on the badge, "and an email. I acquired the company 9 months ago." The room shifted. Tension crackled in the air like static. A sales associate behind the counter, young, Latina, maybe mid-20s, gasped softly. "Oh my God, it is him," she whispered. Richard's face dropped a fraction. The smile faded, replaced by something Julian had seen too many times in his life, fear masquerading as confusion. "That's impossible," Richard muttered. "I would have known. You would have treated me differently?" Julian said, finishing the sentence for him. Silence. Utter silence. Every customer had stopped pretending to browse. Phones were out. Cameras were rolling. The man they'd just watched be publicly humiliated had just revealed he owned the place. Julian turned to the young woman behind the counter. "What's your name?" "Alicia," she said, eyes wide. "Alicia, please call Marla Jennings, our COO. Her number is in the staff binder." She rushed to the back, tripping slightly in her heels, knocking over a velvet box as she went. Richard turned pale. "Mr. Carter, it was a misunderstanding." "It wasn't," Julian said. "It was a decision, one you made, repeatedly." He turned to Jason. "You're not at fault here, Jason. You followed a manager's order. That's what most people do." Jason slowly lowered his hand. "Sir, I didn't know." Julian nodded once. Moments later, the speakerphone crackled to life behind the counter. "This is Marla." "Marla, it's Julian," he said, his voice calm and direct. "I'm at the Michigan Avenue store. Please secure the past 20 minutes of surveillance footage and send it to legal. Also activate Protocol 7. There was a pause. Then Marla said, "Understood." Everyone who worked there froze. Protocol 7 wasn't just a code. It was emergency management overriding an executive order that meant immediate replacement of leadership in a store due to ethical violations. Richard staggered back, as though struck. His lips parted in disbelief. "Wait. You can't. This isn't how, please. Mr. Carter, just give me a moment to explain." "I gave you plenty of moments," Julian replied. "When I walked in, when I waited to be greeted, when I asked politely to see the pendant, you looked at my clothes, and you made a decision." "I have a mortgage," Richard said, desperation creeping into his voice. "I have a family." Julian didn't flinch. "So do the dozens of qualified applicants you've likely turned away for not looking like they belonged. So do the customers you've humiliated who never came back. This is not just about me. It's about the culture you created here." Alicia returned, her face pale. "She's sending the footage now," she whispered. Julian took a breath. "Then let's all watch it together." The main screen above the display wall, usually reserved for rolling ads of shimmering necklaces and glossy models, flashed over to live surveillance footage. Click, play. The store watched, in stark, silent detail, as Julian entered. No greeting, no eye contact, no one approached him. Seconds passed. Minutes. Then Richard appeared, delivering every cutting word. And finally, the moment security was called. The footage ended. The silence afterward felt like a scream. Then Julian looked around at the staff. "I'm going to ask a question," he said. "And I'd like honesty. How many of you have witnessed this kind of behavior before? Customers profiled, dismissed, mistreated based on race or appearance?" Alicia's hand rose first. Then Jason's, then another, and another. Over half the room, Richard's hands shook. Julian looked at him one last time. "You're relieved of duty," he said, "effective immediately." Richard didn't move. For a man who had strutted moments earlier with the air of aristocracy, he now looked like a statue cracked in real time, his mouth open, his confidence evaporated. The store felt like a courtroom, and every witness had seen the evidence play in high definition. Julian remained still. The authority in his voice didn't come from shouting. It came from the way the room listened. "Marla will process your exit package," Julian said, addressing Richard without even looking at him. "You'll receive 2 weeks severance, more than what you showed any of the people you dismissed." Richard's voice broke through, almost pleading. "Mr. Carter, please, just don't ruin my life over one mistake." Julian finally turned. "One mistake?" he asked, his voice sharp but still calm. "That wasn't one mistake, Mr. Halston. That was your protocol. That was your way of operating." He stepped closer, never raising his voice. "You didn't just misjudge me. You misjudged every person who walked through that door and didn't fit your script of what wealth should look like. You didn't see people. You saw stereotypes." Richard's face turned red, then pale. No one came to his defense. Not even Jason. Not Alicia. No customers. He was alone now, the emperor, without his clothes. Security approached this time not at Julian's command, but Marla's. They waited for Richard to collect himself, but he stumbled backward and nearly knocked over the pedestal that once held the anniversary pendant. A harsh clatter rang out, but no one moved to help. "Please," he muttered again, looking to the staff, to customers, to anyone, but no one met his eyes. Alicia's voice cut through, soft but resolute. "You made me cry in the stockroom last month when I asked about the scholarship program." Jason added, "You told me not to waste time on customers who wore sneakers." Julian watched. He didn't need to say anything else. The system was already unraveling in front of them. He turned toward the group of employees. "What you witnessed today wasn't just a failure in leadership," he began, voice level. "It was a failure of culture, of decency, of who we say we are and who we really are, when no one is watching." A few of the younger associates had tears in their eyes. Others looked down in shame. "This store will close immediately for 2 weeks," Julian continued. "Every staff member will be paid in full. But during that time, you'll undergo comprehensive retraining, including anti-bias education, equity protocols, and role-play evaluations with mystery shoppers from every walk of life." A ripple moved through the staff, some stunned, some relieved. "And to be clear," Julian added, "this is not a punishment. This is an opportunity to build something better. Because if we don't change who we are at the core, we'll keep repeating this story just with different characters." He glanced toward the front doors, where a few customers were still standing in silent awe. "For those of you who witnessed this, who recorded this, I ask only this: don't post it yet. Let us fix what's broken. Let us lead by being better, not just perform better when we know we're being watched." One woman, older, wearing pearls and a silk scarf, stepped forward. "Young man," she said gently, "I've shopped luxury my whole life. I've seen what just happened more times than I care to admit, but I've never seen anyone handle it like that." Julian bowed his head slightly. "Thank you." She smiled and added, "You just earned my loyalty for life." Soft clapping began, then louder. A moment that had started in humiliation now pulsed with something else: respect. Julian stepped aside as security escorted Richard Halston out through the back hallway. There were no handcuffs, no raised voices, just consequences. When the door closed behind him, Julian turned back to the staff. "If you stay," he said clearly, "you commit to the new culture. If not, Marla will process your resignation with the same 2-week severance. No judgment, no shame, but no room for anyone who wants to cling to the old way." No one stepped forward. Not yet. Then Alicia raised her hand. "Mr. Carter, I want to stay, and I want to help rebuild." Others nodded in agreement, even Jason, still gripping the edge of the counter as if the last 10 minutes had rewritten his worldview. Julian gave a small, approving nod. Then he took a deep breath, walked to the front of the store, and gently lifted the pink diamond pendant from its display. He turned to the same associate who had once ignored him. "Would you mind wrapping this? It's for my wife." She smiled, genuine this time. "It would be my honor, sir." 6 months later, the Michigan Avenue flagship store looked almost unrecognizable. Gone were the cold marble barriers and intimidating silence. In their place, warm wood accents, soft lighting, and an open layout that welcomed everyone, not just the wealthy or well-dressed. The security team had been retrained. So had the associates. Some had chosen to leave, unwilling to adapt. Most stayed and grew. At the heart of it all stood Julian Carter, once again wearing his quiet navy sweater and silver wedding ring. He stood at a podium near the entrance, behind a velvet ribbon stretched across the store's redesigned entryway. Journalists, staff, and community leaders gathered as cameras flashed. The moment had arrived. "Thank you all for being here," Julian began, his voice clear and grounded. 6 months ago, something happened inside this building that forced us to confront the truth." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle in the room. "Luxury doesn't mean exclusivity. Not anymore. At Lysandra and Company, luxury means excellence with integrity. Dignity without condition. Beauty, yes, but not just on the outside." Behind him, the store's new featured section shimmered under soft lights. A collection of custom-designed pieces crafted by emerging designers from underrepresented backgrounds: immigrants, single mothers, formerly incarcerated artists, and young black creators. A golden plaque above it read, "The Equity Line." Julian continued, "We didn't just redesign a store, we redefined what it means to belong here." The footage from that fateful day had, despite Julian's initial request, been leaked anonymously, though he suspected it was Alicia. It had gone viral within 48 hours, and by week's end, number Lysandra Lessons was trending across the country. People weren't just talking about racism in retail, they were talking about solutions. Julian had leaned into it. He appeared on morning shows, wrote op-eds, spoke at leadership conferences. Not to brag, but to tell the truth. That sometimes, the most powerful transformation starts not from PR teams, but from personal pain. And the results? Sales across the company had gone up 34%. Customer loyalty had skyrocketed. Employee satisfaction reports showed a 60% improvement in internal trust. And for the first time in its 74-year history, Lysandra and Company was nominated for a National Ethics in Business Award. But for Julian, the real measure of success came quietly. That morning, before the ribbon cutting, Alicia, now the assistant store manager, had introduced him to a young woman with nervous eyes and a sketchbook tucked under her arm. "This is Desiree, Mr. Carter," Alicia had said. "She's a student from Chicago Art Institute. She was admiring the Equity Line. Wants to be a designer herself." Julian had smiled and held out his hand. "Then let's make sure she has a path." He'd walked her over to a display where applications for the Lysandra apprenticeship program sat in polished acrylic holders. "Talent belongs everywhere, Desiree," he told her. "Sometimes the world just needs a reminder." Now, as the crowd applauded, Julian stepped down from the podium and took the ceremonial scissors from a velvet cushion. The ribbon fell with a clean, quiet snap. The crowd cheered. Inside the store, the new staff greeted the first wave of customers with authenticity. No more measuring glances, no more silent profiling. Just people helping people find something beautiful without judgment. Later, as the day wound down, Marla Jennings's COO joined him by the new welcome wall, a glass panel where customers could leave anonymous notes about their experiences. "You know," she said, reading one message written in careful cursive, "I didn't expect to feel seen in a place like this. That one almost made me cry." Julian smiled softly. "That's the one I read this morning." She looked at him. "Do you regret it? That day? That confrontation?" He shook his head. It didn't feel like a choice. It felt like a responsibility. They stood in silence for a moment. "I think what we create now," Julian said quietly, "goes far beyond gold and diamonds." Marla tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "We're creating space," he said. "Space for people to be seen, heard, valued. That's the most precious thing of all." As they turned to leave, Julian caught sight of a family walking in two parents, two kids, modestly dressed, wide-eyed and curious. They looked hesitant at first. Then Alicia stepped forward, offering them a smile warmer than sunlight. "Welcome to Lysandra," she said. "We're so glad you're here. Have you ever been treated differently because of how you looked? Tell us your story in the comments. And if you believe dignity should never come with a price tag, hit that subscribe button.